I'm Max Porterfield, President and CEO of Callinex Mines. We are currently drilling out a very, very high-grade copper, gold, silver, and zinc deposit. And just outside of Flin Flon, Manitoba, we've got a long history, nearly 100 years of continuous production in that community. That's now in jeopardy with the shutdown of the 777 mine. In addition to that, we're testing some regional exploration targets to add to Rainbow in the historic deposit called Pine Bay that we published on a maiden resource later this year.
Max, thank you very much for the introduction. Really nice to see you again. It's been over 6 months that I last spoke to you in December, and you've been pretty busy since then.
No, absolutely. We're very, very busy. We were able to put out earlier this year, really the last batch of the 2021 drilling campaign, completed a financing to replenish the treasury, and then now deep into a 20,000 meter drilling campaign to continue on the successes that we had last year, as we were really taking Rainbow from its infancy and showing its true potential and growing it through the delineation drilling and step out drilling that has been taking place over the past year and a half.
Part of the work that you were going to be doing over the last 6 months, when I spoke to you last, we talked about these kind of the regional context and the fact that these VMS deposits occur in clusters and that they seem to be spatially related to this basal conglomerate, this coarse conglomeratic breccia called Millrock. And I see that you've got, when I look at your presentation, you've got a number of anomalies that you've got anomalies, geophysical anomalies that you're drilling and targeting. You've got anomaly A, anomaly B, you've got target area 1, 2, and 3. But before we get into what you're doing in this kind of drill program, during the course of the last 6 months, you've come out with some pretty spectacular drill results, including 37 meters at 6% copper, I think, in hole PBM 138, and in PBM 129 in wedge 2, you got 67 meters at 2.7%. Can you just talk to me about what those results did for your program, and it helped you understand things in terms of what you were looking at?
Yeah, so I mean, there are spectacular results. In terms of VMS systems, typically a VMS lens is going to average between 3 to 8 meters true width. You're very rarely going to get blowout zones to that extent that we're hitting in the orange zone with those, the wide intervals that you mentioned there. Really the 67 meters is a joining of the orange and yellow zone, and the other interval, the 33 meters, the 37 meters, which is really 33 meters true width, was simply an orange zone intersection. So those are indicative of VMS systems. Rainbow in general is on the wider end of that spectrum. The orange zone, for example, is well over 8 meters true thickness throughout that deposit. And where you have these kind of wider intercepts, is just an area that you're going to build tonnage that much more fast. Rainbow sits very steeply dipping and plunging, makes it very amenable to an underground mining scenario when you get those type of widths and certainly those grades. In terms of the grades are indicative of a high-grade VMS deposit in Flin Flon. That's why Flin Flon's made Flin Flon so special. And you've had companies operating there for the past 100+ years.
So you're basically saying that there are kind of a series of subparallel lenses at Rainbow, and that you would the thickest one was when you went through two of those lenses.
Right. I can actually just quickly show you something to that end in terms of a cross section, if you like.
And you've drilled. I remember you had drilled very deep on this prior, and that you were kind of filling in to kind of towards the surface.
Yeah. So in terms of what we're doing at Rainbow in drilling, the discovery hole at Rainbow was 900 meters vertical depth, and I'll just show you that, and I'll show you all the drilling that has happened since then. So since the discovery hole at 900 meters, roughly vertical depth, we've continued to delineate Rainbow and bring it closer to surface. So leading into to Rainbow, we were testing those chargeability iso shells. I think I might have shown you this before. And then when you look at all the drilling we've done on Rainbow since that discovery hole, we've stepped out up to within 100 meters vertical near surface, we're hitting Rainbow. you're seeing the stacked lenses really on echelon. So there's the red zone, which comes, right near the surface. Then the orange zone, which is the main lens that I'd mentioned before, zone. And then where you're getting those wide intervals is where you're going to get a mix between the yellow and orange zone. The 33-meter intercept will be somewhere really in the heart of the orange zone here.
Okay.
So
okay, good.
That's kind of how it all stacks in terms of context underground.
And when it comes to the 20,000-meter drilling program that you've got planned for this year, hang on, I'm just looking at my notes here. You've got 21 holes completed, so you've done about 13,000 meters.
Right.
And you've done 11 holes into Rainbow, and you've got another 9 planned. Is that just kind of filling in the plan, just filling in the gaps?
Right. So half the campaign, so there's a 20,000-meter campaign. Roughly half of that campaign was directly for Rainbow. And that's going to be step out and infill drilling at Rainbow, where we need to fill in the necessary gaps to be able to publish a maiden resource. So all that drilling is going to be leading to a maiden resource on Rainbow. We're also going to be publishing an updated resource on the adjacent Pine Bay deposit that sits along that growth fault. And there's a historic head frame and shaft that is right between really Rainbow and Pine Bay. The other 10,000 meters is earmarked and has been spent and allocated towards exploration drilling on a regional basis. So again, we had 2 different target areas, Anomaly A and Anomaly B, that we had identified through the most recent round of drilling that we did in the last year. And then we had identified 3 different target areas along the trend between Rainbow and the past producing Centennial mine to the south that we're testing as well. So that's where the second 10,000 meters is going, is hitting a new discovery with the mindset that Rainbow shows every indication it's going to continue at depth. There's nothing to say that it wouldn't continue at depth. But if we can go out there and hit another discovery or 2 within that growth fault or along that trend, and then you can immediately build additional tonnage closer to surface. And if you look at the history of the camp, typically once you have your maiden resource, the deposits grow significantly larger as you're able to get underground and do more deeper exploration. That's been indicative of all the major discoveries in the camp.
Thank you. There's lots of information there. Just going back to what you started with in that section, you're aiming for a maiden resource estimate on Rainbow, and you're allocating roughly 10,000 meters of this drilling program to that. How much drilling was done on Rainbow last year?
Well, in total, we've done roughly 40,000 meters in Rainbow leading into this year.
Okay, and so you're going to...
I'd say like 35,000 meters would have done on Rainbow last year.
So 5,000 pre 2021, 35 in 2021, plus another 10 this year. So around 50,000 meters ballpark.
Right.
That's got a vertical extent down. I know you pinged it first at 900 meters, but the main resource is going to...
The drilling that we're doing for the resource is really going to be between the 100-meter level down to the 800-meter level or so.
Okay. It's mostly going to be in the inferred category, isn't it? You might get a little bit into the indicated, but I should imagine that most of that is going to be in the inferred category.
Right, that's correct, yes.
Okay. And you said it's mostly kind of 8 meters thick. Is that about right?
For the orange zone, it's about 8.5 meters true thickness. Okay. That's the main zone between the 3 of them.
Okay, and the other zones are what
I don't
kind of
have
thicknesses?
The number off the top of my head. They're going to be smaller than 8.5 meters. I'd say between 4 to 5 meters.
Yeah, good. Okay, just so I can get and the strike length on it is what are we talking? Is it
the strike length depends on which zone, but you're looking at 130 to 150 meter strike.
Okay.
The yellow zone will have more of a strike extent, but that's not going to be in the resource. I mean, the main tonnage is going to be built around the orange zone. The yellow zone doesn't pick up to 600 meters below surface, and it's obviously open at depth. Typically within these VMS lenses, like you're seeing it playing out in the red zone and the orange zone, which have got more holes in the zone just because of where they're located, for every 1 meter of strike, you're going to have between 5 to 8 times your depth extent on these deposits in Flin Flon because they're elongated.
Okay, well, that's really
like a back of the envelope rule of thumb.
Yeah. So, 1 meter strike, you said 5 to 8 depth.
For every 1 meter of strike for each lens. Yeah, so the yellow zone starting at 600 meters below surface and having a strike of 150 to 200 meters, probably running close to 150 on that. And then that lens, depth potential. The geochem data also suggests it continues at depth, as well as borehole EM on the deepest drilling at Rainbow is indicated that it continues at depth.
Nice. I said
We're
that's a
looking to
nice
build a resource within the first, again, 800 meters of surface.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then the talking about the Pine Bay historical resource and the fact you're redoing it. Have you added extra drilling to that, or are you just going back and reinterpreting?
So there's some modern holes that we have into Pine Bay that were completed in 2015.
Yeah.
As well as we're resampling some historic drill core that we have on site at our facilities there at Pine Bay.
Yeah.
And then that will be an updated resource as well. And that'll be the two resources that we'll be publishing this year.
You've given me kind of rough dimensions of Rainbow. Can you sketch out for me the rough dimensions of Pine Bay?
The Pine Bay is roughly 1 million tons historic. The historic resource on it's 1.1 million tons of 2.75 copper. And then it starts right at the lake bottom or lake surface, and then goes down roughly 300-400 meters.
Okay, and you're not expecting a kind of a game-changing volumetric or tonnage change. It's just simply restating it so that you're able to talk about it.
It's a historic resource there. That's why the head frame and shaft was put there, as well as for the mineral lease. It would be something that you go after if you're in an underground mining scenario. That's a take on it. You need much more engineering work and engineers involved as we get further down the process. But certainly 1 million tons is roughly a 1 year production. Depending on the kind of mining scenario you're looking at. And to go after and put on the books.
Good. And you mentioned that there's another deposit to kind of the southwest. Kind of you go from Pine Bay where there's a historic shaft, and then there's Rainbow, and then you come. You said that you got some nice target areas, and there's a historic shaft down to the southwest. Have you got any data from that production or that kind of deposit or that area in terms of historic resources?
So in terms of along the growth fault, there are other mines, I think that we were mentioning. The North Star mine was a very small mine, and actually, let me just show you a quick visual, kind of in the context of these mines. So the Don John mine, which is on our property, was very small, 60,000 tons. So it would be way down this kind of list here. The North Star mine, which is the other mine, again, you're looking at sub-1,000,000 tons. As you go from east to west on our property, from Don John to North Star, by the time you make it to Baker Patton, and then to the cabin zone, you're looking at 100,000 tons, roughly 115,000 tons. And then the Pine Bay deposit, back in the envelope, 1.1 million tons historic at 2.75% copper is a historic number on that. And then you have Rainbow. So on that growth fault corridor, as you go from east to west, these deposits do get larger as you go from more distal to proximal towards the base of the growth fault. And this is a good, I think, visual for context. This is actually a source from Hud Bay. But this is going back to the regional mines and discoveries in Manitoba historically. In really the takeaway here is that these are initial reserves. But once you get into a mining scenario, a lot of these deposits, many of them more often not grow 2 to 3 times their initial reserve. Certainly that was the case with the original Flin Flon ore body. You saw that with Lawler. I mean, Lawler was a discovery at 800 meters vertical depth, topped out at 500 meters below surface. And then again, they drilled off what was necessary at 777 to make a production system to continue their producing there when they went to production and start that underground development. You can see the big resource growth there. And then Trout Lake's very similar. And Trout Lake was discovered by our our chairman, former chairman, and founder of the company, Mike Maslowski, initial resource when they drilled it out was 3 million tons, and it grew to 21 million tons. So at Rainbow in Pine Bay, I think collectively back in the envelope, we're going to be a standout number based upon, the past big producers. And I think it really takes a slide like this to put things in context. What Rainbow is going to come out as a maiden resource, which, we'll be publishing later this year. And then aside from just a maiden resource, what can it grow to become in the future, right? It's just because it's a maiden resource doesn't mean that's all that's there. And as you kind of alluded to, the fact that we're publishing the resource within the first 800 meters of surface.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. You've got some nice photographs in your presentation of the Millrock and how important that is as a kind of a stratigraphic marker in the system, both at Flin Flon and at 777, and also on your properties. You flicked up, before we started the interview, you flicked up some nice images of the Millrock. Could we go back to that and just kind of have a quick look at that?
Yes, certainly. So, and actually, it's a good feel for the lay of the land, so to speak, out there.
Yeah, I mean, especially since you're talking about kind of going from west to east and getting closer to, closer to 777 and Flin Flon, because these are really close together. I mean, this is a short physical distance, isn't it?
Right. So from Millrock Hill, and we'll take you to the outcrop here in a second, to the edge of the Flin Flon open pit is 432 meters, roughly. I think that's a pretty specific number there, but roughly 400 meters away. And then Callinex, which tops out at 300 meters vertical depth, and then the 777. Again, these are it's dipping at a 55-degree angle in this direction underground, right? Yeah. This is the head frame that gets it. These deposits sit roughly 2 Ks from the base of Millrock Hill, right? And so,
but kind of that Millrock isn't your Millrock. That's
no,
the Flin. That's the Flin Flon
Millrock Hill. We call ours Millrock Mountain. It's much steeper relative to Millrock Hill when you actually get out to these two different sites. But again, this is in proximity to Millrock Hill. So in terms of the coarse talus breccia that you mentioned, this is the outcropping that if you're a geologist, that the first place to go when you're on a site tour to Flin Flon is out here to Millrock Hill because of its importance. And as I mentioned, as you follow that growth fault, the most proximal mine to the base of that growth fault at Millrock Hill is the Flin Flon ore body here, which 62 million tons. I mean, that's what made put Flin Flon on the map. It was an open pit, then one underground. And then as you continue along that growth fault and kind of this is looking back first, but you can see the 777 head frame, and then Callinex, the topped out, would be in the distance. And that system would come like this.
But right. Hang on. When you talk about the distance, 400 meters or 2 kilometers from the Millrock, are you talking about kind of a vertical distance, or is it along the lateral, along the strike?
Along strike. So
okay.
And I'll show you. As we go to it and show you Pine Bay, you'll kind of see how they connect together. But again, these will be the Millrock Hill will be here, and then as you go north south is where you'll have along this felsic package, that sliver of yellow rocks, these deposits that sit. At Pine Bay, the base of the growth fault, Millrock Mountain, is right here, and it goes from east-west. And these deposits sit along that growth fault corridor. So the same controls you see in Flin Flon are the same controls that you see at Pine Bay. The difference between Flin Flon and Pine Bay being, obviously you have 100 million tons here, and the lack of exploration at Pine Bay until we've come around to it. But Pine Bay encompasses the largest felsic volcanic rock package in the entire Flin Flon greenstone belt that's been mapped at surface. So
and what's the distance?
The host rock to 90% of the ore.
And what's the distance between Millrock Hill and Pine Root Millrock?
Well, the distance between both properties is 16 kilometers.
And
but they're independent of each other.
Are they folded? I mean, is that a big fold that I can see there, or is that?
No, there is big folds in the area, but those are not connected. These are two separate events. The area
Okay.
at Pine Bay is really analogous to the Chisel Lake Basin, which is in the Snow Lake area of the Flin Flon Greenstone Belt that hosts the Lawler discovery, the Lawler mine,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then many others. So in the Chisel Lake Basin, you've got a very large felsic pile. You have all that alteration, and you had some smaller deposit and mines like the Chisel mine. And then ultimately there was a missing giant that ended up being the Lawler deposit. So you have the pedigree has always been there at Pine Bay, and really we're piecing together, the exploration dots, so to speak,
To find the missing giant. That's what you're looking
missing
for.
giants, yes, on the property, and I do believe there can be more than one. If you look at Pine Bay now, our outcropping is called Millrock Mountain because it's more steep when you get out there. And if you look between Millrock Mountain to Rainbow, that's 1.7 kilometers. So in many ways, it's analogous to the top of Callinex, which would be roughly 2 kilometers from the base of the growth fault or Millrock Hill. And Rainbow sits 1.7 kilometers. As you go further to the east, you can see again the Pine Bay deposit at 1 million tons historic, then Cabin, Baker Patton, and then as we talked about earlier on that the slide, the North Star and the Donjon mine. So all this, the exploration that had been done historically, and I can show you that if you look at all the drilling that's been done in the area or not been done in the area, had been all really focused at the base, not at the base of the growth fault, but over here because of the map alteration that was on this land. And of course, you can't map alteration under lakes, but that was really what got everyone excited historically that explored the area was big alteration package mapped in this area.
Your basic thesis is that west of Rainbow, going towards the Millrock Mountain, you've got that 1.7 kilometers, which could potentially host the missing giant, and presumably on the other side of the Millrock Mountain as well, you've got another attractive domain.
To the south, there's another set of Millrock as well. That we have multiple growth faults on our property. So this is the main controlling growth fault to the north, which is with Millrock Mountain that controls these deposits. From an exploration potential moving forward, from a regional exploration potential, aside from Rainbow, we're focusing in this immediate area, as well as to the south in this area. Along this trend. So these are where these targets would be along this trend, where you have the sourdough deposit, and then the Centennial mine would be further to the south of that.
Can you talk to me a little bit now about kind of the Anomaly A, Anomaly B? Because in your most recent news release, you say that you've done some drilling at Anomaly A and B, but the drill and those holes are being assayed, but you're going to go back and you're going to go and put another hole, at least one more, into Anomaly B. And you say that you've gone into target 2, and you're definitely going to go back and drill that because you saw some good results, good looking geology, but you haven't got the results yet.
Right. So I can just show you this. It's probably easier. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
We started to explore towards the base of the growth fault, and let me just jump forward, and I'm going to show you where we kind of were from an exploration perspective leading into this campaign, and really the approach. So if you looked at the Pine Bay area, which I'll just share with you right now, this was all the drilling that had been done historically at the Pine Bay property before we started exploring the property in 2015. So you can see that those are the areas where the deposits were. That's the Pine Bay deposit that we discussed earlier, being updated the resource. And then this is the historic sourdough deposit in the Centennial mine. So that was that trend that we're talking that's north-south. And then if you look at all the drilling that we've done since then, again, we initially started and was focused on that alteration system in the Pine Bay area. And then utilizing IP, we made the discovery of Rainbow. And then this is kind of putting into context where Rainbow sits within this kind of gap. So if you look between Rainbow right here and the Millrock Mountain, you can see it's very void of any kind of exploration, very limited drilling in the area. You can see these, we call them gopher holes. There's no hole really more than 100 meters these small black dots
Yeah.
that are anywhere in the vicinity of the base of this growth fault. So the only modern hole that we put out here was our hole 117, and there was another hole along strike to the south, but nothing in the vicinity at all. So what we did last year, and we talked about in a lot of the news releases, but we started drilling different isolated targets from historic data, whether it be borehole EM data, surface VTEM data, ground EM survey data that we had in the database. And we really like the geology in this area. We discovered a new horizon up in this area. And then we had this big awful anomaly, Anomaly B. So since that time, we've gone in and tested both anomalies. We got one hole that successfully tested in the middle of Anomaly A. And then as you can see, we've got a number of holes that have been put into Anomaly B with a plan, again, as this is pending assays and geochem data as well, we can then focus on returning back to target area 2, where we started the campaign, and follow up there. So in terms of what we've done, we've gotten 6 holes into Anomaly B. That's the largest anomaly. It's right at the base of the growth fault.
Yep.
Right? And you can kind of see where that sits in the stack sequencing. And in terms of the other targets, we mentioned the news release. This is another target we'll be testing right now. We have a drill on. It's the northern extent of this large chargeability iso shell.
Yeah.
And that would be something else that would be, again, directly between Rainbow and Anomaly B would be this chargeability iso shell. So those.
Sorry, in the news release, you talk about Anomaly A B, which you've just pointed out.
Yes.
You also talk about targets 1, 2, and 3. Can you show me where they are on this image?
And this is where targets 1, 2, and 3 are.
Okay, and so that's separate to that ISO chargeability shell that you were just showing me.
Right. So this ISO shell right here, we didn't formally announce as a target area as we were interpreting the data. And we've just added that as a target that we're testing in the near term immediately. If there's actually a drill on site, we mentioned that. That's the target we mentioned is between Anomaly B and Rainbow as a 6th target area that was previously unannounced. Will be this area here.
Okay, so I've got in my notes that you're refining the geophysical targets around target 1, and that's what you're talking about.
No, the targets that we're finding around target 1 is right here. So
okay.
Target area 1, we had drilled this 120 hole early in 2021. And really, when you look at the stratigraphy and the horizons out there, you've got to make sure that you have your loops laid out, not to get too technical on how to do a borehole EM survey. But your loop layout's really critical in terms of what area of the hole and what geology that you're lighting up from a conductivity perspective, in kind of focusing your borehole strength towards. So we want to make sure before going back and following up on this, drilling it from going from east to west on the topography, there's a shoreline over here. We want to make sure that the hole's put in the right place, because this is a coincident surface pulse EM and chargeability iso shell. And because we have a hole in the area, it makes much more sense to go out and properly reprobe that with a different loop layout in terms of incremental costs to really refine that prior to testing that. So that's what that was referring to when we refer to refining the target area 1.
Okay, thank you. And just going back to your Anomaly B and the 6 holes that you've got into it, can you see things like the sulfide content and the stringers and the massive sulfide zone that you would normally associate with a VMS deposit?
We haven't announced any results or anything we've seen visually from from the drilling there. That will be pending.
Right.
I think that from a vectoring standpoint, we have announced in Anomaly A's case that that was a new horizon out there. So we do like the area very much. And in terms of vectoring, I think look at Rainbow's case. We like to see success early on in testing a target area. I think again, there's indications that we like the area for more ways than one. But in terms of anything that we've intersected that hasn't been announced yet, and we'll look to announce that in a really cohesive way when we get all the assays results back. When you keep in mind a lot of these holes from exploration, these deeper exploration holes or deep holes on a Rainbow, they can take a very long period of time to drill. In some cases, you're talking 3.5 weeks to a month to drill a hole, process, ship it, and then at least another 3 weeks for assay turnaround. So those lags are going to keep in context to an ongoing exploration campaign. But certainly we're looking to come back to this area. We just wanted to take a pause from this area, give them the opportunity to come test that target area between Anomaly B and Rainbow, and then get back to target area 2 where we started the campaign, right? So there's a lot of logistical planning on accessing various targets during certain parts of the drill season, and that's really what we're managing right now.
Thank you. Could you drop the image, please, now?
Yeah, oh, sorry about that.
What are the constraints on the logistics? Obviously, water. Do you do barge drilling, or do you drill from shore and on ice in the winter?
So we do barge drilling. That's what we're in the process of doing actually for target area 2, which is the next target that we could have, I can show you, but essentially we're testing target area 2. When we tested target area 2, we've always liked that area. This is our 8th hole into that area, just in generally, the sourdough region, I should say, not target area 2 itself. Based upon the borehole EM data, as well as the data that we hit in the drill that's pending assay results, we wanted to immediately be able to follow up. So we are looking to bring a barge in and actually conduct a barge drilling campaign, or part of the campaign off of a barge, to follow up to target area 2, because it is a very high priority for us to follow up in this campaign, given the results there after the first hole. It just takes a bit of time to be able to plan those type of things out. Whether it be ice drilling or barge drilling or even land drilling. I mean, you need to plan on pushing roads in, you need to get your permits in place and what have you. Manitoba is a great jurisdiction, very supportive for mining. I mean, the community is obviously extra supportive given what's gone down at 777 more recently. But again, nothing that is out of the realm of what we're used to dealing with from an exploration front in Manitoba. And you can also see that the topography is favorable for exploration. I mean, you have a lot of outcropping, as you can see from Millrock Hill. I didn't get a chance to see Millrock Mountain, but it's very similar and the same. In that flat topography makes it really conducive to getting work done. Just
on the 777 mine closing, is there an operating mine in the area still, or how many? Well, what's the situation like? Or was that the last operating mine?
That's our last operating mine in Flin Flon for now. I say for now because I see a bright future for what we're on to, and what our objectives has always been to extend the life of Flin Flon in its rich mining history. With that being said, in terms of I like to say the sister city or town and community would be the Snow Lake area, the Flin Flon Greenstone Belt. We have Lala producing, but that's a completely different production center. They have their own mill with Lawler and the New Britannia complex and everything going on out there. And Snow Lake is completely independent. In terms of what's happened at 777, 777 is officially shut down about a month ago. So that's being unwound.
How many employees were there?
785 direct jobs.
Wow.
Of course, there's the auxiliary employees in the area. In terms of job losses, it's going to be quite excessive. There have been some transfers over to the Snow Lake area. Some employees that were retirement eligible took that option, and then others, of course, are going to meet the fate that no one really wants to see happen in terms of layoffs. So, the kind of guidance given by HUD Bay is that this facility will be put on care and maintenance, and that's always been an opportunity utilizing that infrastructure. Certainly that still exists and hasn't changed. We're just focused on meeting our objectives at the time constraints that we can meet them by. Everything takes time, and this is a time intensive business in general. As I mentioned, holes take 3 weeks to drill sometimes, and that's just the nature of what we're up against. But the reality is that Rainbow is a significant discovery. You can see that when you put it into context where we think we're going. I mean, you can do from your experience and your expertise back on where we're at. You can see that Rainbow is definitely going to stand out based upon Flin Flon's history. And if we're able to have some success on the exploration front, which we'll have a huge amount of confidence in, that's just inherently how I am as a person, or we wouldn't have made the first discovery. I think, in terms of us as a team, we're all believing we're going to make another discovery. And that's how you make discoveries, you you got to start out with the mindset that you're going to make the discovery to put yourself in a position to make the discovery. So I think we're well on the way to being and putting ourselves in that position with testing the targets. You got to keep in mind context. When we made the discovery of Rainbow, we had 3 different target areas. Rainbow was the target area 1, was the largest chargeability iso shell that we tested on a much smaller piece of the land package. And now we kind of put together the pieces of a regional puzzle, taking in context where things sit in really in Flin Flon with those major discoveries. It really just highlights the exploration potential that we haven't even touched at the property this year, 100 years later, 100 years from when they started doing exploration in the area, which is truly spectacular in many ways to think we've spent so much time and energy in this area. Rainbow is just the start, but from an exploration potential to have that, untapped area in proximity to the base of the growth fault is really spectacular.
Yeah, no, great. Really interesting. And so your news flow over the next 6 months, let's say let's look at the news flow to the end of this year. It's going to be ongoing drilling, ongoing drill results, updates on where you've got to in the drilling, and then kind of associated with that results coming through. And then I guess the biggie is your kind of maiden resource estimate.
Well, the biggie twofold. I think the results are in leading up to the big one, which would be the maiden resource, but also another discovery would be a big catalyst. It's a twofold approach, right? Yeah. It's to show what we have, and the potential obviously remains at depth in what we have. Yeah. And then to add in, I like to call them, siblings in some ways, sister discoveries. Brother and sister. If Rainbow's, the sister, where's the big brother?
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Not to say that Rainbow is not the big sister, because Rainbow it has a lot of potential, and she's already showing that it can be very sizable if you look at relation to anything else. But where's the twin? Yeah, I mean, well, if you go along that growth fault, the trend is your friend, and so should we get another one, I think it instantly unlock a lot more value and exploration, unlocking exploration potential on the property that might not be realized in the company, certainly at the valuation we are. So, the meat on the bone is Rainbow and Pine Bay, and then the sizzle will be any kind of exploration success we have. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're probably not allowed to do it, but I can. If you look at Rainbow, 700 meters of vertical depth between the 100 meters and the 800 meters, and 100 meters, even if I chop it down to 100 meters strike width, and if I add up the various layers, call it 10 meters for my simple maths, it's 700,000. That's meters cubed as a kind of as a base case, and you take your density, whatever it is, 2.8, 2.7, maybe 3. You're up at around 2 million tons, and that's just without even blinking. I think that'd be very, very, very conservative. That is. I mean, I've deliberately taken a very conservative approach, and then you maybe add on another 1 million tons in Pine Bay. Kind of that's the historic, and then you've got all of the depth extent. You've got all of the triple lenses. The fact that the strike is not 100 meters, but it's 130 to 150. You can see how what did you call it? The meat on the bone is there, and then you can add on the sizzle would come through making sibling discoveries. Yeah, any kind of discovery that would come on would be even adding, because it'd be instantaneous resource growth. And I think if we're to hit anything on the property, particularly anything between Rainbow and Millrock Mountain, instantly you could argue, well, it's going to be at least the size of Rainbow or larger from an exploration potential. Right, just because where it sits on the growth fault and the trend in terms of deposit size is going from Don John at 60,000 tons all the way to Rainbow, where Rainbow comes out within the first 800 meters of surface open at depth, right? I mean, it's they consistently get larger as you go from east to west, and you see the same thing in Flin Flon. The difference in Flin Flon is at the base of the growth fault, there's nothing past the Callinex 777. Right, so you have 62 million tons. Then you have collectively 32 million tons roughly between Callinex at 8 million tons and 777 roughly at 26 million tons. Roundabout. So those are the two within the first 2 kilometers of surface. And if you look where we're at, you have Rainbow at 1.7 kilometers away. That'd be analogous to the top of the Callinex. And then the depth extent would be similar, in many ways to what 777 becomes. The difference being is that we're, near vertical of, it dips about 82 degrees near vertical plunge, as opposed to, the system at Callinex 777 is dipping at a 55-degree angle, right? So it's much more steeper of a situation for all the deposits, whether it be Pine Bay or Rainbow at the Pine Bay project.
Yeah, no, got it. Exciting times. We're all dealing with terrible markets at the moment. But clearly you've got the support, or I should imagine you've got the support of a local community with the closure of the 777 mine. So I think everybody interested in the long-term future of Flin Flon community is kind of willing you on for success. What's the commentary you're receiving in the market at the moment? Yeah, I know it's a terrible market at the moment. Metal prices have been all over the show. The junior sector has sold off. What's the commentary you're getting from your shareholder base or from investors? Well,
I think everyone that we've spoken with is very, very longer term, has us optimistic on everything. In shorter term, it's just pick a name. It's been a tough market for everybody. So I don't think anybody's pointing us and going, Callinex is an underperformer. I don't think certainly we are an underperformer by any stretch of the measure. I think if you look at the share price, we have come down, but we've come down on very, very low volume. And again, that points to supportive shareholder base in general and a very, very tight structure. We had some really great shareholders that added on to their position in the most recent financing and brought on some really well-established, well-respected new shareholders like McKinsey, group out of Toronto, great track record. They've been following the story for going back to really 2015, was one of the first meetings I had as CEO of Callinex, as well as Altius, for an example. Altius has an underlying royalty that pre-existed on the area that Rainbow was discovered, and to make an investment on an equity standpoint in support of that says a lot. So
yeah.
All the shareholders are extremely supportive of everything, and a lot of them are using it as an opportunity to add to their position as well. So all ships rise in a rising tide, and when the tide comes down, it's going to be a kind of a rough waters, and then you somehow shipwrecks. But we're not in that position. We recapitalized the company in April of this year and fully funded everything that we needed to do this year. So while the ocean remains choppy, the ship's heading in the right direction, and the success will, I think, continue to drive more success. And having the community behind us is one thing. We also have the government of Manitoba and the policymakers behind us as well. So everyone's pulling together at a really challenging time in support of what our bigger term objectives are. And that's to create a sustainable mining future for Flin Flon. And that's a continuation of a long history. And I think there's a lot of exploration potential in Flin Flon and beyond just Pine Bay. And I think the more that's highlighted, the more support we get, the more the community that will shine and the community will shine.
Great. Well, message received loud and clear. Weather the storm, get through the choppy waters, and keep delivering those results. And I look forward to talking to you later in the year, perhaps when the maiden resource is out, and or if there's a new discovery to talk about.
Absolutely. I'm excited to come back to discuss this.
Great. Max, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.